The board is expressing a view in its submission to say, look, does it make sense spending potentially £30 million on transition costs to move £100 million, a single apprenticeship fund, from SDS to the Funding Council, when today we've got really pressing issues that need attention and need focus. And in that regard, I guess it almost feels like the purpose of the bill, or what the bill was intended for, was maybe conceived in a time past, and events have taken over.
In our view, we've got a complex funding environment for post-school education, and the bill is trying to simplify that. Maybe removing artificial barriers between vocational skills-based training and other academic training. But bringing the funding into one place will allow us to have a more holistic view of the learner-employer demand and respond to learner and employer needs more efficiently and effectively.
Mr. Yeates.
Yeah, I guess it's difficult to get my head around that, in the sense that £2.2 billion already sits with the Funding Council. So we're talking about moving 3% of the funding is going to achieve a miraculous decomplexity of the system. It just doesn't seem to add up.
Just on that, Mr. Boyle, your response to that?
But there's two different places that are funding skills, so if it was all in one place, then surely that would simplify it. It would be the one place would be having a view of all parts of the system, or a different view of the whole bit of apprenticeships. We already fund,
but it is a very small proportion of that.
Yeah, it's a tiny, yeah.
And sorry, Mr. Yeates.
Yeah, and I guess the difference with apprenticeships is they're not quite students, are they? So they're employees of companies who have them under development, and who pay their wages, and who typically pay £10 for every pound of public money. So it's a very different service into the system compared to a typical student journey through college and university. There's over 11,000 small to medium-sized businesses who contribute to offering places. So there's a natural complexity to supporting a young or an older apprentice through a system which requires careful management. And I think it's very distinctive to a typical student journey. And I guess therein lies the difference. You know, are we moving towards a wholly academic, institution-focused system? Are we managing a balance? Because I think that balance is what most of what we hear from industry is that we recognise the excellence in our colleges and our universities, but we also need workplace skills, and we need to support employers to invest in the workforce for the future. So it is a very distinctive offer, and I think just bringing it all together, and given the amount of money, which is, as we said, about 3%, but I go back to the finances of it. You know, our estimate is that it could cost up to £30 million just to transition that £100 million in terms of 2P transfers. So it feels like a lot of effort for very small gains, when in reality today we have significant skill shortages and we have a pressing crisis in higher education funding. So the question I would ask is, what is the bill doing to ensure that Scotland will have the workforce to unlock £230 billion worth of investment? And what's the bill doing to give confidence to the university sector that they can thrive and continue to contribute disproportionately to the growth in the Scottish economy?
In response to another question from Pam Duncan-Glancy about the focus being on apprenticeships, you said, in your words were, you had read the reports about concerns that there wouldn't be a focus if this transfers into the Funding Council, but that won't happen. So, given that you know that's out there are concerns about that. While we take you at your word, we need more than that. What is your evidence that there won't be that lack of focus on apprenticeships going forward, given you know it's a concern out with this committee, with a number of people?
I think in terms of hard evidence, that's quite hard, but we will...
Well, that, in fairness, Mr Boyle, that's why I'm asking you, because I think it's useful that you tell us that, and it's now on the record, and it will be in the official report. But given that you know that people are worried about this, what can you substantially say as an example, here's why you shouldn't worry about this. Here's why the SFC can confirm to you that there will not be any dilution in terms of the focus on apprenticeships with the move from SDS to SFC.
So I could bring in a number of things. So we inherited the FAs and GAs, as I've already said, a few years ago. Graduate apprenticeships have grown over the last few years. We've got universities like Glasgow Caledonian have doubled the number of graduate apprenticeships. They want to do more. We've just recently developed a new graduate apprenticeship framework, working with various colleagues around operating theatre practice, which was seen as being a massive skills issue. We've delivered that. So far in the last few years, we've pushed forward in terms of graduate apprenticeships, in terms of foundation apprenticeships.
But so knowing all that and knowing your record at the Funding Council for achieving that, people are still worried that when you take on this extra responsibility, there will not be the same focus on apprenticeships. So that's what I'm trying to get to. Even with your past record, people still think this is an issue that they're concerned about.
So in a lot of the, so I'm going based on what I've read from previous committee meetings or people's submissions. A lot of the comments are about, well, the Funding Council's focused on universities and colleges, not on apprenticeships. Therefore, it will continue to be focused there. But I don't see it as being that. I see it as being we're bringing two organisations together. We'll have a new organisation that delivers the full range of university, college, apprenticeship provision. And our focus will be on all three. We'll have a whole new culture, we'll have a new structure, we'll have a new staff base. There's absolutely no... we're bringing in lots of people with all the experience of apprenticeships over years working at SDS. So that would continue. There's no reason for it not to continue.
So you've heard Mr Yeates say several times £30 million is the transition cost, which is much more than the government saying is the cost. Why have you not challenged that figure? Do you agree with the figure of £30 million?
That's the first time I've heard it today. But
again, you're taking on this. This is going to be your costs.
Yeah, and that's discussions we've still to have. And
we still don't know what the figure is then. So, but surely you must know. Is he right or not? Because you've seen his evidence paper before. Surely, all of this is feeding me to believe that you're not ready for this. And you're just...
So,
there
we've already
so
had the
much.
Discussion. We don't know yet exactly what's in scope. We are trying to engage, we're trying to engage with SDS, we're trying to engage with the Scottish Government to get a sense of what's actually in scope. We're still having those discussions. Once that's done, then we'll have a much clearer idea from working with SDS what's in scope, what the costs are. The government's, I'm told, the government got all the costs from each organisation.
So the Withers report was pretty scathing. I'll just a few snatches of comments. Competing narratives, duplication, lack of clarity, lack of leadership and effective governance, harmful and false division. And this bit was particularly critical. SDS doesn't always appear that it makes decisions or demonstrates behaviours which are focused first on public service delivery or the needs of learners. This dynamic is acting as a blocker for partnership working, joined-up thinking and delivery across the public sector. So what's your response?
Yeah, I think the response from the SDS board was very clear. The board had a number of engagements with James. James said to the board that his report was opinion-led. He didn't take any evidence. To be fair to James, he said at the outset of undertaking his report that he would not take account of performance or finances. So it's an opinion. But it doesn't bear scrutiny against the evidence when you look at what the organisation does, what it achieves, the scale of the partnerships that it has, how it goes about its business. It was ironic in the year that James published his opinion piece, EFQM, which is the European Foundation for Quality Management, awarded SDS the 7-star award for excellence, the first public body to get a 7-star award in the UK. And EFQM are absolutely evidence-led. So I think the board felt very frustrated at the nature of how the Withers report came to be. The board actually presented to government the opportunity to use UK Cabinet Office methodology, which is the tailored review, which is an independent evidence-led approach. And as I say, to be fair to James, he absolutely accepts it's an opinion piece and it's his opinion.
It's pretty dismissive of a government-sanctioned report that's been embraced by the government ministers and has been implemented into legislation. Can you really just call it an opinion piece?
That's what it is. If you look at the evidence that was submitted, if you review all of the submissions, very little of the submissions to the report were brought in.
So you don't accept any of the quotes that I've read out there about
I don't recognise them, no. Absolutely not.
I don't doubt the skill of the people that work for SDS for 1 minute, but what I'm saying is most of that talent will be transferred over
I guess that's partly the challenge. It's like taking a component of SDS. It's not all of SDS. So the employer engagement team, the regional skills team, none of those are transferring across. The careers teams are not transferring across. So the integrated nature of what SDS does and its deep engagement with industry is an opportunity in terms of reform.
Equally, Mr Yeates will feel today that there's similar kind of connections with SFC and other organisations as well already along the similar lines. And part of the report was as well that there was a doubt from the Withers report that SDS were engaging to the level they should be.
Well, look, if all of that's true, then why do we have the level of skills shortages that we have today? And then if you extrapolate the need for 1.1 million workers, even if we didn't have skills shortages today, we would need to be doing something different. So more of the same is not going to take us to where we need to get.
This isn't the same. The proposal isn't the same.
It's moving money, simply moving money.
You have neither agreed or disagreed with the £30 million figure suggested by SDS as the transition cost for this. But you're not really coming to the Education Committee, who are scrutinising this bill, to say that the Scottish Funding Council don't know what the costs will be to take on these extra responsibilities.
As I said, we've not had the engagement yet with SDS to be able to clarify that.
You're coming to
Mr
Boyle, you're coming to a parliamentary committee that has to scrutinise this bill. This is our first session. And you prepare for these sessions. You said earlier you were the interim chief executive before of the Scottish Funding Council. Presumably, people within that organisation said you're going to get asked questions about this, that and the other. And one of them is going to be about the costs of this bill. And if it's put into law, how much it will cost to transfer people across and for SFC to take on these responsibilities. Are you saying as a representative of the Scottish Funding Council, an agency of the Scottish Government, that you have no clue whatsoever of the costs of this legislation if it's passed?
We still do not know how many.
Is that a yes? You have no idea what the costs will be.
The blunt answer is yes. But, sorry,
okay.
I'll make sure I answer the question right. I don't know exactly how much the cost will be.
But you don't even have a ballpark.
We've not engaged with SDS yet around how many people will come, what the numbers are, what is actually transferring.
But you know that SDS have done that work. Because they're saying it's 30 million, and you know that.
Well, I know that now, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that has been, they've made, I think, Mr Yeates, that's not a secret. That's not just been revealed today. So the SFC didn't scrutinise that figure at all?
I haven't seen that figure.
No one prepared you for this session to say, you might hear, because you're sharing a panel with the SDS, that they believe the cost is going to be 30 million. Here's how you respond to that.
Well, until we know exactly what's transferring, we can't.
So are you saying SDS have plucked that figure out there? Can they not know?
And there's different views on to-pay, there's different views on, I mean, it's exceptionally complex on all these different costs. So until we know exactly what's going on, how can we...
Because it's so complex, we as a committee need to be able to scrutinise this. And I just feel you've come to this committee ill-prepared to allow us to challenge and scrutinise the Funding Council's response to the proposed legislation. I mean, funding is a basic question you will get at every single parliamentary committee. And I'm quite frankly shocked that SFC can't prepare you to answer questions about the financial implications of this bill. So what if there is a general underspend in the apprenticeship budget and there is another call for £10 million for universities such as Dundee, as we've just had? Are you saying, even if you haven't spent all your money in apprenticeships, you would not provide that money to struggling universities or colleges?
I mean, there would be so many processes to go through to make that happen. I can't.
So it could happen then?
I can't see it happening. We get a budget for universities, we get a budget for colleges, and Damien gets a budget for apprenticeships.
And you're saying
voted on by this Parliament. This Parliament votes on it.
And you're saying there will never be
we cannot swap that money around. We're not allowed to swap that money around.
I'll just say I'm not particularly reassured that if we had a repeat of what we've seen at Dundee University and there was a rallying call for funding to save an institution from going under, that if the SFC had not spent all its money on apprenticeships, that money would not then go, as it has done recently, towards a struggling institution.
We do already engage in a number of spaces with employers and with industry. Our board also includes people who are employers and who've been working in industry. It's not as if we've got a board full of people who are all, say, some sort of academics. We've taken, I think, Claire Reid this morning said that she was meeting us soon, so we've got meetings arranged with a number of bodies, including Scottish Trading Federation, Prosper, and some others, to have an initial discussion about how we might move ahead on that.